My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 44 years old and I was married to Rachel for nearly 10 years. We met on a rainy afternoon in Los Angeles back in 2014, the kind of rain that feels like a rare gift in that city. I was in a small cafe near Fairfax, Ling time with a lukewarm espresso when I noticed her get up and leave her umbrella by the coat rack. It wasn't anything fancy, just a clear bubble dome with a black handle, but for some reason I grabbed it and followed her out. She was halfway down the sidewalk when I called out. She turned and when she saw me holding her umbrella, she laughed. Not a polite little thank you laugh, but a real one, like I'd told the world's funniest joke. That laugh lodged itself somewhere in my chest and refused to leave. We stood in the drizzle talking for 20 minutes right there on the street. By the time we said goodbye, I knew her middle name, her favorite band in high school, and that she hated when people clapped at the end of movies. I asked her out 2 days later. 6 months after that, we moved in together. A year later, we got married. Everything between us moved fast, but never recklessly. Or so I thought. We weren't impulsive, we were passionate. We weren't rushing, we were certain. When we moved to Denver in 2016, we told ourselves it was for a slower pace of life, for the mountains, for the seasons. But I think deep down, I wanted a quieter backdrop to the life I was building with her. I wanted to be the guy who came home from work, kissed his wife on the forehead while she stirred something in a pan, and talked about weekend hikes and retirement plans. And for a while, we were that couple. Our house wasn't huge, but it had a fireplace and creaky wooden floors and a back porch that overlooked a tiny garden Rachel kept insisting she'd eventually grow tomatoes in. We had dinners with friends, took trips to Arizona and Oregon, hosted game nights, laughed in bed. I remember thinking more than once how lucky I was that I'd found my person in such a random way because of an umbrella and a laugh. But the truth is, even good stories can take a turn. And sometimes the first signs of trouble come dressed as ordinary moments. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because I had the day off and Rachel was working from home. I had finally decided to set up the 3D printer I'd ordered weeks earlier, a silly impulse I convinced myself would be useful. The printer's setup guide was a mess of jargon and half-translated instructions, so I went searching online for a clearer version. Rachel's laptop was on the dining table, open, and I figured I'd just use it to print what I needed. Her Gmail was already open, and I didn't think anything of it at first. But then I saw it, a message near the top of the inbox, marked unread. No subject. Just a paperclip icon showing there was an attachment. If I'd been thinking straight, I would have looked away. But curiosity, or maybe something deeper, something I didn't want to name yet, pulled me in. I clicked it. It was a photo. Just one. Rachel was standing in what looked like a hotel lobby, her arms around a man I didn't recognize. He was maybe a few inches taller than her, well-dressed, probably mid-40s. Nothing about the setting screamed romantic getaway, but something about their posture did. They were close. Not just physically, but emotionally. You can tell when two people are trying not to look too involved, and you can definitely tell when they're not trying at all. What hit me hardest wasn't the man or the hotel. It was Rachel's expression. That familiar smile. But it wasn't the smile she gave to coworkers or neighbors or people she only kind of liked. It was the smile she gave me once upon a time when I brought her coffee in bed or played her old Beatles records on lazy Sundays. And suddenly it felt like I was watching something sacred turn counterfeit. When she got home that night, I asked about it. I tried to keep my tone light, like I was genuinely curious and not unraveling inside. I said, "Hey, I saw a picture in your email. Who was that guy you were with in Seattle?" She didn't even flinch. Said it was an old family friend she bumped into at the hotel. Claimed someone took the photo while they were catching up in the lobby. Just a coincidence, a funny little moment. She even chuckled a bit as if I was being silly. And maybe I was. Or maybe I just wanted to be. I nodded. Smiled. Let it go. But not really. Something inside me had shifted. Like the smallest crack in a windshield, it starts tiny, barely noticeable, but you know it's going to spread. From that moment on, every little oddity became magnified. Her phone, once left on the counter without a second thought, was suddenly always in her pocket or flipped face down. She started getting texts late at night, just work stuff, she said. I told myself I was imagining things, reading too much into coincidence, letting paranoia get the best of me. But you know what they say about gut feelings. They don't yell. They whisper. And that whisper was getting louder every day. I started remembering things I had brushed off before. That business trip to Seattle, how she'd seemed cagey about the details. How she didn't bring back any souvenirs even though she usually did. How she'd come home with a tired smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I began checking dates, scrolling back through our texts from when she was gone. Her replies had been brief and now, with hindsight, evasive. I remembered asking her what hotel she stayed in. She told me the name. I looked it up. It wasn't the one in the photo. Still, I didn't confront her. Not fully. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd hear. Maybe I thought if I waited long enough it would all make sense. That she'd come to me with an explanation, a truth that didn't feel like betrayal. But that moment never came. Instead, I kept replaying that image in my mind, Rachel's arms around a stranger in a place she said she'd never been. Her smile. That effortless, affectionate, too familiar smile. I had seen it so many times that it felt like mine. But in that photo, it wasn't mine at all. That's when I knew something was wrong. Not in a dramatic, soap opera kind of way. No screaming, no lipstick on a collar, no dramatic late-night confessions. Just a feeling. A weight in my chest. A silence in her voice. A truth I wasn't meant to find, but did. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. After that photo, nothing was the same. Not in any obvious way. Rachel didn't act wildly different. She didn't start staying out all night or picking fights. It was subtler than that, quieter. Like a draft sneaking in through a crack in the window. You don't notice it right away. You just start feeling colder and can't explain why. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Still texted things like, "Hope your meeting goes okay," smiley face, or "Do you want Thai or pizza tonight?" But her eyes didn't linger when they met mine. Her hugs felt lighter, her laughter delayed, like she was waiting for a cue that never came. We still shared a bed, but it felt like sleeping next to a stranger who happened to remember your Wi-Fi password. I started coming home earlier from work just to see her. Not because I didn't trust her, I kept telling myself that, but because I was grasping for normalcy. One day, I walked in around 5:30. I expected to find her in the kitchen or maybe upstairs on a call. Instead, the house was silent. I called her name. No answer. Then I heard her upstairs in our bedroom. The door was cracked just enough. I was about to call out again when I heard her laugh, soft in asterisk mate. Not the kind you reserve for small talk or jokes about the weather. I froze. "I know," she said, her voice light and relaxed. "He's completely in the dark." It still feels like the first time. My body went rigid. For a second, I didn't even breathe. I stood there, motionless, hands still on the banister. The laugh. The words. I felt like I'd fallen through the floor. A second later, I opened the door, making enough noise that she'd know I was there. She jumped slightly but masked it well. Her phone was already off and flipped over on the bed. "Hey," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Didn't hear you when I got home?" She smiled, just slightly too wide. "Oh, sorry. Was on the phone with my sister." Her sister, Lauren, is many things. Warm and loyal, sure. But the woman has the emotional softness of a sledgehammer. I'd heard her on the phone enough times to know that wasn't the voice I'd just heard. Still, I nodded like I bought it. Maybe a part of me still wanted to. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said quickly, already walking to the closet. "Just catching up. You know how she gets." That night, I watched her in bed as she texted silently, phone screen tilted away from me. Her face was lit by that soft blue glow, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time she looked at me that way. Not like that. Not at all. Over the next few weeks, her routine shifted again. Later nights. More work dinners. Sudden meetings that just came up. And when she was home, she was exhausted in a way that made me feel like even asking how her day went was an inconvenience. She'd sigh and say things like, "Can we not do this right now?" as if basic conversation was a burden. I told myself to let it go. I reminded myself that people go through phases. Work gets stressful. Life gets heavy. Relationships ebb and flow. But it wasn't just ebbing. It was draining. Slowly. Quietly. Like water leaking from a pipe behind a wall, you don't see it, but you know something's wrong by the mold that starts creeping in around the corners. One night, I offered to cook dinner. She said she wasn't hungry. Another night, I suggested we rewatch one of her favorite shows together. She claimed she had a headache. I asked if she wanted to go hiking over the weekend. She said she was too tired. Always tired. The woman who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen while making pasta now barely looked up from her phone. I caught myself staring at the back of her head one morning while she sat at the breakfast table scrolling through something. It hit me that I didn't know who she was texting, what she was thinking, or if she even wanted to be there anymore. And worse, I didn't know how to ask. So I stopped trying. I started waking up earlier, leaving for work before she was even out of bed. I told myself it was to get ahead on projects, but the truth was I didn't want to sit across from her in silence anymore. I didn't want to keep pretending that things were okay when every second was filled with invisible tension. But then came the moment I couldn't ignore. I had a dentist appointment across town that ended early, so I headed home mid-afternoon. Her car was in the driveway. Odd, since she was supposed to be in Boulder for a client meeting. I didn't announce myself when I came in. Part of me didn't want to interrupt. The other part, I think it wanted to catch something. Anything. Proof that I wasn't just imagining it all. I walked slowly, quietly toward the kitchen. That's when I heard her voice. She wasn't on the phone this time, she was speaking out loud. Not loudly. Soft. In asterisk, mate. The kind of tone you reserve for someone who knows your secrets. I've missed you too. I wish I could see you tonight, but he's working from home. Maybe tomorrow. I didn't step into the room. I didn't need to. I backed away like I'd just touched something hot. I sat in the garage for almost an hour after that, trying to convince myself I'd misunderstood. That she was rehearsing a line for a podcast. That maybe I'd caught a fragment of something else. But deep down I knew. The pieces were starting to connect, and I hated the picture they were forming. That night, Rachel acted normal. Made small talk. Asked about my day. Smiled a few times. But the warmth wasn't there. It was like she was playing a part in a play I hadn't auditioned for. I watched her, wondering if she was pretending to love me or if she'd just stopped pretending to care. And through it all, I didn't say a word. Because that's what people do when they're afraid of the truth. They pretend they're still okay. They hang on to the familiar ache of suspicion because it hurts less than the pain of confirmation. But something had already broken inside me. The weight of it was getting harder to carry. And I knew sooner or later I was going to have to ask the question I didn't want answered. It happened on a Tuesday. Funny how the worst days don't announce themselves. There's no thunder, no sign that your life's about to split in half. Just a sky the color of dishwater and a to-do list you'll never finish. I came home a bit later than usual. The office had been quiet and I stayed late, not because I had to, but because I didn't want to walk through the front door and pretend again. The pretending was getting exhausting. When I stepped into the kitchen, I noticed Rachel's phone sitting on the counter. That alone was strange. She never left her phone lying around anymore. It was always on her, face down or locked away in her purse. But there it was, silent, screen dim. Like it had been forgotten in a moment of distraction. I told myself to walk away. To respect her privacy. To be better than whatever it was I suspected. But I couldn't. I wish I could tell you I hesitated. I didn't. I tapped the screen. No passcode. Just a Face ID she wasn't around to use. But it let me into the notifications. One message stood out from a contact saved under just a single letter, A. It said, "Tonight?" My blood went cold. I opened the thread. There were no declarations of love, no explicit photos, nothing obvious. But it was all there in the subtext, in the language that people only use when they're comfortable in the secrecy of something that doesn't belong in the light. She called him Sunshine. Said she missed his stupid laugh. That she couldn't stop thinking about how good Vegas felt. Vegas, where she told me she went alone for a business seminar 2 months ago. The one where she came back with a t-shirt, a hangover, and a guilt-stiff smile that didn't match the stories she told. I scrolled further. There was talk of flights. Hotel names. A reservation at a place she'd once claimed was too trendy for her. All the things I'd never gotten in text. No, miss you or wish you were here when she traveled for work. But this guy got the real stuff. The version of Rachel I hadn't seen in years. And just like that, the house went quiet in a different way. It wasn't heartbreak, not exactly. It was clarity. A light switching on in a room I didn't realize had been dark for years. Rachel walked in 20 minutes later, a shopping bag in her hand. She saw me standing in the kitchen, her phone still in my hand. She stopped in the doorway. We locked eyes. And something passed between us. Not surprise. Not fear. Just a mutual understanding. There it was. No gaslighting. No scrambling. No, you're being paranoid. She didn't ask what I'd seen. She didn't even reach for the phone. She just said, "Can we talk later?" then walked past me and into the bedroom. That was it. That was the moment I knew she wasn't cheating on me anymore because she wasn't with me anymore. Hadn't been for a while. I was just the background music to a movie she was filming with someone else. Comfortable. Familiar. But no longer the story. I sat down at the table and stared at nothing. The refrigerator buzzed. A neighbor's dog barked once. And I just sat there wondering how long I'd been living in the echo of a life we stopped sharing. I didn't follow her into the bedroom. I didn't ask questions I already knew the answers to. I didn't yell. There was no point. Instead, I picked up her phone one last time, opened the conversation again, and read the most recent message she'd sent him just that morning. Counting the hours. Not "can't wait to come home." Not "had a crazy day, miss you." Just counting the hours. It wasn't for me. I used to think that the worst betrayal was physical, that it would be the image of her in someone else's arms that would destroy me. But I was wrong. The worst betrayal was emotional exclusivity, her choosing to give her light to someone else. The softness, the excitement, the versions of herself she used to reserve for me. She hadn't left me for a better man. She just stopped seeing me altogether. I stayed up that night, not out of rage, but to feel something solid beneath my feet. I went out to the shed behind our house where I kept the tools I rarely used. I swept it out, rearranged the shelves, found an old box of photos from our honeymoon, Rachel grinning in the sun, a piña colada in hand, her feet buried in the sand. I looked at that photo for a long time. Not because I missed her, but because I wanted to understand what I was losing. Or more truthfully, what I had already lost. At some point, I must have fallen asleep on the couch. When I woke up, it was just after dawn. The house was quiet again. But a different kind of quiet. Not tense. Not anticipatory. Just still. Rachel was already gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway. She'd left early for work or for him. I didn't know. I didn't ask. Later that day, I received a text from her. I'm sorry if things felt off last night. Let's talk tonight. I owe you that. She didn't owe me a talk. She owed me truth, and she'd already given it, just not to me. That evening, when she came home, she made dinner. Set the table. Poured 2 glasses of wine. She was trying. Not to fix things, but to manage the landing. To soften the fall. Like if she just acted normal, maybe we wouldn't have to look at the wreckage between us. We sat across from each other, eating in silence. Finally, she said, "You saw the messages." I nodded. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. I didn't reply. Because nothing good ever starts with that line. I've never heard "I didn't mean for it to happen" lead anywhere but deeper into dishonesty. She went on anyway. It started small. Just texts. Jokes. And then it turned into something else before I realized what was happening. I stared at my plate. She kept going. I felt seen. Noticed. I felt like myself again. That part hurt the most. Not the betrayal. Not even the lies. But the fact that someone else got the version of her I thought had disappeared forever. She hadn't stopped being that woman, she just stopped being her with me. It wasn't about him, she added. It was about me. About what I thought I was missing. But it was him you gave it to, I finally said. My voice didn't crack. It didn't rise. It just came out even, like reading a verdict. Not me. Not us. Him. She didn't deny it. And that was the full truth. Not for me. For him. She had made her choice in small, deliberate moments. In every call she answered in another room. Every half-truth about hotel names and dinner plans. Every smile she sent through a screen while I sat 10 feet away wondering why the silence had changed shape. It wasn't that she didn't love me anymore. It was that I wasn't part of the equation she used to solve her loneliness. She left a week later. There was no dramatic fight. No shouting. No broken dishes or slammed doors. Just a suitcase by the stairs and an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a handwritten note, short, rushed, and a little too neat to feel sincere. Ethan, I can't keep pretending. I don't want to hurt you anymore. I need time to think. I'm sorry for everything. That was it. 10 years reduced to 35 words and the sound of the front door closing behind her. I didn't chase her. Didn't call. Didn't cry. I just sat at the table staring at that note, trying to figure out if I felt more relief or regret. The truth is, I felt both. But mostly, I felt empty. In the days that followed, I moved like someone underwater. The house was too quiet, the bed too big. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. out of habit, expecting to hear her breathing beside me. Instead, there was only the creak of the heater and the distant hum of traffic. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, that emptiness began to shift. What once felt like a void started to feel like space. The kind of space you don't know you need until it's there. I began waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to move again. I started running, just short laps around the block at first, lungs burning, legs stiff. But there was something about the cold morning air, the sound of my shoes on the pavement, that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. Rachel had never been a morning person. When we were together, I used to tiptoe around the house so I wouldn't wake her. Now, I blared music in the kitchen while I made coffee. Classic rock, mostly. Tom Petty. Springsteen. Loud enough to drown out the thoughts that used to keep me company. I also stopped avoiding the shed. It had been a neglected space for years, a graveyard of unfinished projects and forgotten tools. But one Saturday, on a whim, I hauled out the clutter and started building something with my hands. A table. Nothing fancy. Just 4 legs and a flat top. But when I finished sanding it, I sat down and stared at it for a long time. It was solid. Real. Tangible. Something I made. Something that didn't lie or drift away. That was the beginning. I built more pieces, small cabinets, cutting boards, a bookshelf for the living room. My hands got calloused. My shirt smelled like sawdust. It felt good. One afternoon, I took a photo of the table and posted it online. Just a quick snap *T with the caption, "Learning to work with wood." Not bad for a first try. I didn't expect much. But a few people commented. One even asked if I could make one for them. I said yes. Then another. And another. Soon, I created a channel, Walkerworks. At first, it was just time-lapse videos of me sanding and gluing and making awkward jokes into the camera. But people responded. Subscribed. Left comments like, "Man, this is peaceful as hell, and I'm watching this at 2 a.m. instead of texting my ex, thank you." It surprised me. Not just that people watched, but that I felt connected. To strangers. To something beyond the wreckage of my marriage. Rachel never really got my hobbies. She used to roll her eyes when I brought home new tools or disappeared into the shed. "You get obsessive," she'd say, half laughing. Like you're trying to build your way out of something. Maybe I was. But now I wasn't building to escape, I was building to reclaim. I started sleeping better. Eating better. Calling old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. One of them, Kyle, invited me on a weekend trip to Red Feather Lakes. Just the guys. We fished. Drank beer by the fire. Stayed up talking about all the dumb stuff we used to do. It felt good to laugh without weighing every word, without worrying if I was being too much or not enough. One night, Kyle looked at me and said, "You seem lighter, man." Like, unburdened. And I realized he was right. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking on eggshells or waiting for the next lie. I wasn't living in reaction to someone else's silence. I was just living. It wasn't all smooth. Some nights were still hard. I'd hear a song or smell a certain shampoo and feel that pang in my chest. Memories aren't polite, they show up uninvited. But they pass. They always do. About a month after she left, Rachel texted me. "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." I stared at the message for a while before putting my phone down. I didn't answer. Not because I hated her, but because I didn't need to respond to a version of her that no longer existed in my life. That was the shift. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't trying to make sense of her choices. I wasn't playing the scenes over in my head, wondering what I missed or where I went wrong. I had stopped needing closure from her. I was writing my own. One evening, I looked around the house and realized how different it felt. The same furniture. The same walls. But a new rhythm. A quiet that didn't ache. A solitude that didn't sting. I had always thought freedom would feel like a big moment. A sunrise epiphany. But it wasn't. It was slow. Cumulative. Found in the small, steady act of rebuilding. It was in the morning runs. The smell of cut cedar. The YouTube comments from strangers halfway across the world. The table I made with my own 2 hands. And the man I was becoming, not in spite of what happened, but because of what I'd finally let go of. It was early November when she came back. Not permanently. Not with bags or apologies or any grand gestures. Just she showed up. No call. No warning. I had just finished filming a video about installing soft close hinges on a cabinet, and there she was, standing on my porch, clutching a coffee cup and wearing that coat I once bought her in Portland, the one she swore she'd never wear because it was too puffy. I opened the door slowly. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't even angry. I was just curious. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I replied. For a few seconds, we just stood there, the late autumn breeze curling around us. The silence wasn't tense. It wasn't comfortable either. It just was. "Can I come in?" she asked finally. I thought about it for a second longer than was polite, then stepped aside. The house had changed. I could tell by the way her eyes moved. She noticed the bookshelf I built, the new rug in the hallway, the missing photo frames that once held *TS of us at Red Rocks and Lake Powell. She didn't say anything. Just walked to the kitchen, leaned against the counter like she still belonged. "I brought you a coffee," she said, setting it on the table. "Flat white? I think that's still your favorite." It was. "Thanks." She nodded. Bit her lip. Looked down like she was searching for the right way in. I didn't help her. I just sat at the table and waited. "So, I've been thinking," she started, then paused. "I've been doing a lot of that lately." "Thinking's easy," I said, a little colder than I meant to. "Living with your decisions is harder." She flinched, but she didn't run. Instead, she pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. Her eyes looked older. Not tired, just weathered. Like the weight of what she'd done had finally caught up to her. "I'm not here to make excuses," she said. "I know what I did. I'm not proud of it. I just..." I've been living in someone else's guest room for 2 months, eating frozen dinners and pretending I didn't screw up the one person who actually gave a damn about me. I stayed quiet. She took a breath. It didn't work out. With him. She nodded. Why? She gave a half shrug. Because I was chasing a feeling. Not a person. He made me feel seen but not safe. It was fun. Until it wasn't. And then I realized ease isn't the same as peace. I looked at her, unsure of what I was supposed to say to that. Part of me wanted to ask why she was saying all this now. The other part already knew. You thought I'd be waiting, I said. She hesitated. I hoped, maybe not waiting, but still open. I let that sit. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. I miss the way mornings felt here. You making coffee, the radio low, your feet always cold on the tile. I smiled at that. Just a flicker. Didn't stop you from walking out? I know. Silence stretched between us again, but it wasn't the same kind of silence we used to share, the kind that sat between us like a wall. This one was reflective. Honest. Worn in. I watched your channel, she said quietly. The one with the woodworking. I raised an eyebrow. You're good, she added. Like really good. That table you made? The one with the inlaid edges? It's beautiful. Thanks. I never realized how much that stuff meant to you. No, I said. You just stopped caring. She swallowed hard, but to her credit, she didn't deny it. I used to think being loved meant being the center of someone's universe, she said. But I think I got it backwards. Real love is knowing you're not the center, but they still choose to orbit you. Every day. That would have been a great insight a year ago. She gave a sad smile. I know. I know I'm late. I needed to see it. Needed to see you. What do you want, Rachel? I asked. She blinked. Honestly, that'd be a start. She took a long breath. I want to remember who we were. Before all the noise. Before the phones and the distance and the pretending. I looked at her for a long time. She still had the same dimple in her right cheek when she smiled, though it was buried now. The same mole on her neck just under her jaw. The same voice that used to narrate our grocery runs like a podcast. But she wasn't the same. And neither was I. I'm not that guy anymore, I said. She nodded slowly. I can see that. I stopped needing to prove I was lovable. And I stopped deserving that kind of love. I didn't correct her. She looked down at her hands. Twisted the ring she wasn't wearing anymore. Then she stood up. Well, she said, her voice softer now. I should go. I didn't stop her. But just before she reached the door, she turned back. Ethan? Yeah? I hope you're happy. Not like Instagram happy, but the kind that feels quiet and whole. I stood there for a second before replying. I'm getting there. She smiled. For real this time. Good. Then she left. And this time, it didn't feel like something being taken from me. It felt like a page turning. That night, I stood on the back porch, watching the wind blow through the trees. The sky was clear. Cold. Silent. But not hollow. Just open. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't need her to come back. Because I had finally come back to myself. A few weeks later, she texted again. This time it wasn't vague. She asked if we could meet for coffee. Said she needed to say something, not over the phone, not through a screen. In person. I agreed. Not because I expected anything new, but because part of me wanted to hear her say it out loud. We met at a small cafe we used to visit when we first moved to Denver. She was already there, seated by the window, nursing a half-finished latte. She looked up when I walked in, offered a small smile, and gestured to the seat across from her. I won't take up much of your time, she said. Go ahead. Rachel took a breath, then met my eyes. There was someone else. And not just in the romantic way. Emotionally. It started as a distraction, but it turned into a second life. I nodded. I already knew. But I let her speak. I didn't cheat because I stopped loving you, she said. I cheated because I got tired of feeling like I had to work at everything. I mistook ease for happiness. And I convinced myself that new meant better. She paused. But it wasn't. He wasn't. And now I understand what I gave up. You weren't perfect, Ethan. But you were real. You were steady. You showed up. There was silence. Do you want me to say I regret it? She asked quietly. No, I said. I want you to live with it. We didn't argue. We didn't cry. When we stood, we hugged just once, brief and hollow. Then we walked in opposite directions. And that was the last time I saw her in person. A year later, I live in a small house just outside the city. It's quiet here. Mornings are slow. I drink my coffee on the porch, wrapped in a flannel, watching the trees shift with the seasons. I build furniture during the day, film videos in the afternoon, and read books at night. Sometimes Rachel texts. Short things. How are you? Or I saw your new video, looks great. I usually don't respond. Not out of malice. Just, what's left to say? There's no war between us anymore. No tug-of-war over blame or closure. Just space. Distance. The quiet understanding that some bridges are better left burned. I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm. But I don't miss her either. Because what I learned, what I carry with me every single day is this: love isn't just chemistry or compatibility. It's consistency. It's respect. It's the choice to stay, not out of obligation, but out of devotion. Out of truth. She didn't choose me. Not when it mattered. And that's okay. Because I chose myself. Now when I hear footsteps on the porch, I don't brace. I don't hope it's her or fear that it might be. The silence I live with isn't empty. It's peace. And that finally is enough.